First Contact's Deception. The Silverian Empire's first transmission reached Earth on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Their message arrived simultaneously at every major radio telescope and communications facility worldwide, a perfect demonstration of their technological superiority. "We come in peace," they said, in flawless translations across every human language. "We are travelers seeking friendship among the stars." Dr. Sarah Chen stood in NASA's control room, watching the pristine holographic projections of the Silverian ambassadors hover above their conference table. Their crystalline forms caught the light beautifully, refracting it into rainbow patterns across the walls. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she should have been thrilled. Instead, she felt a creeping sense of unease. "Their biology is silicon-based," she explained to the UN Security Council 2 weeks later. "They shouldn't be this interested in our organic compounds." But humanity was too entranced by the gifts the Silverians brought: clean energy technology, advanced medical treatments, and the promise of faster-than-light travel. The Silverians established their primary embassy in Geneva, with smaller outposts in every major city. They were perfect guests, helpful, courteous, and seemingly transparent about their technology and culture. Their ships hung in low Earth orbit like delicate crystal sculptures, drawing tourists who came to photograph their ethereal beauty. Ambassador Lyrix, their chief representative, cut an imposing figure despite standing only 5 feet tall. Their crystalline form shifted colors with their moods, currently displaying a peaceful blue as they addressed the United Nations. "We see such potential in humanity," they said, their voice resonating like wind chimes. "Let us help you achieve it." But Sarah couldn't shake her suspicions. The Silverians' interest in Earth's rainforests seemed excessive for mere scientific curiosity. Their questions about human cellular regeneration were oddly specific, and their embassy complexes had unusually large underground facilities for diplomatic missions. James Rodriguez, her research partner and husband, shared her concerns. As a quantum computing specialist, he'd been granted access to some of the Silverians' technology. "Their systems are too perfectly compatible with ours," he told her one night in their secure lab. "It's like they designed everything specifically for human use." The truth began to unravel 8 months after first contact. A junior researcher in Sarah's lab made a startling discovery while analyzing soil samples from around Silverian facilities. The crystal structures in the soil were expanding, slowly converting organic matter into silicon-based compounds. Before Sarah could alert the authorities, the Silverians struck. Their embassy complexes burst open like blooming crystal flowers, releasing swarms of nanomachines into Earth's atmosphere. Their beautiful ships in orbit revealed their true forms, massive crystalline weapons platforms that began methodically targeting military installations worldwide. Ambassador Lyrix's final transmission dropped all pretense of friendship. "Your planet's organic diversity is unprecedented in our known galaxy," they announced, their form now pulsing an aggressive red. "Your species has done an admirable job preserving it. But now it will serve a greater purpose. The Silverian Empire requires new biological templates to prevent our own stagnation. Your resistance would only damage the resources we've come to harvest." The initial attack was devastating in its precision. The nanomachines began converting Earth's atmosphere, making it more suitable for Silverian biology. Military responses proved ineffective. Conventional weapons shattered against the invaders' crystalline forms, only to see them reconstruct themselves from the pieces. But in their perfect planning, the Silverians made a crucial mistake. They assumed humanity would respond logically, surrendering in the face of overwhelming technological superiority. They didn't expect Sarah and James to immediately release their research findings on the invaders' silicon-based biology to every scientific institution and hacker collective on Earth. They didn't expect humans to be so adaptable, so quick to improvise, so willing to break their own rules when survival was at stake. As crystal spires burst from the ground around major cities, somewhere in a basement lab in Singapore, A teenager who'd read Sarah's data discovered that ordinary household vinegar could disrupt Silverian molecular structures. In Detroit, auto workers realized their industrial glass etching equipment could be modified to damage Silverian armor. And in a hidden facility beneath MIT, James was already working on a computer virus that would turn the invaders' perfect compatibility against them. The Silverians had planned for every logical response, but they were about to learn that humans were anything but logical when fighting for their survival. As Sarah watched the crystalline ships descend through Earth's darkening atmosphere, she sent one final message to her global network of scientists. They think we're just another resource to be harvested. Let's show them how humans react when backed into a corner. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was done playing nice. The engineering of defiance. The first successful counterattack against the Silverians didn't come from a military base or a government facility. It came from a small electronics repair shop in Mumbai, where Priya Patel had spent the last 3 days studying the strange crystalline debris that had fallen from a damaged alien ship. Priya wasn't a soldier or a scientist. She fixed smartphones and laptops for a living. But she understood resonance frequencies. When she discovered that the Silverian crystals vibrated violently when exposed to certain sound waves, she didn't wait for official approval. She simply connected every speaker in her shop to her old DJ equipment and cranked up the volume to a very specific frequency. The Silverian patrol outside her shop shattered like glass. News of Priya's discovery spread through underground networks faster than the Silverians could censor it. Within days, resistance cells worldwide were weaponizing sound systems. Concert venues became armories. Teenagers with portable speakers became guerrilla fighters. The aliens had expected humanity to use conventional weapons. Instead, they got impromptu raves that reduced their troops to glittering dust. But sound was just the beginning. In Chicago, former construction worker Mike O'Malley discovered that modified concrete vibrators could disrupt the crystalline structures the aliens used to convert Earth's infrastructure. His crew went from building skyscrapers to systematically destroying Silverian terraform nodes, using tools they'd worked with their entire lives. The Silverians responded by adapting their crystalline frequencies, but they didn't understand a fundamental truth about humans. Adaptation wasn't just a survival strategy for us, it was our way of life. James Rodriguez, working from a hidden server farm in the Rocky Mountains, had finally cracked the alien code. Their perfect compatibility was their weakness. He explained over encrypted channels to resistance leaders worldwide. They designed their systems to interface seamlessly with human technology, but they never imagined we'd use that connection to attack them. His virus, dubbed Sandstorm, didn't just infect Silverian systems, it turned their own molecular reconstruction abilities against them. Infected units began to rebuild themselves with fatal flaws, spreading the corruption through their perfectly ordered crystal networks. The aliens' response was swift and brutal. They accelerated their atmospheric conversion projects, creating vast crystalline forests that began absorbing Earth's organic matter at an alarming rate. Entire ecosystems were transformed into silicon-based replicas. Humanity was running out of time. But Dr. Sarah Chen had been busy too. Working with a global team of biochemists connected through darknet channels, she had discovered something fascinating about the Silverian transformation process. They're not just converting organic matter to silicon, she announced during a clandestine video conference. They're preserving the underlying patterns, and patterns can be manipulated. In abandoned university labs and hidden basement facilities, humans began experimenting with ways to corrupt these patterns. They discovered that introducing certain organic compounds during the crystallization process created unstable formations that would eventually collapse. Farmers began spraying their fields with modified fertilizers. Gardeners planted specific combinations of vegetation that would poison the crystalline conversion. The Silverians had anticipated a war of technology and firepower. Instead, they got housewives turning cleaning supplies into weapons, plumbers using their knowledge of pressure systems to destroy alien infrastructure, and teenagers transforming social media networks into battlefield intelligence systems. In orbit, the crystalline ships began showing signs of degradation. James's sandstorm virus had spread through their networks, causing random systems to fail. On the ground, resistance fighters armed with sonic weapons and pattern-corrupting compounds pushed back against the crystal forests. But the Silverians still held one decisive advantage: their control over Earth's compromised atmosphere. The air was becoming thinner, more suitable for their silicon-based biology. Humans were forced to retreat into sealed environments, fighting not just the aliens but their own need to breathe. That's when Dr. Chen made her most crucial discovery. Hidden in her data about Silverian pattern preservation was a revelation that would change everything. The aliens weren't just converting Earth's biosphere. They were trying to absorb and replicate it. And in that desperate attempt to copy organic life's infinite adaptability, they had made themselves vulnerable in a way no one had expected. As crystal spires reached toward Earth's darkening skies, Sarah sent her findings to resistance cells worldwide. "They wanted our biological patterns," she wrote. "Let's give them exactly what they asked for, but on our terms." The next phase of the war would test not just humanity's ingenuity, but our understanding of life itself. And somewhere in the crystalline forests that had once been Earth's grasslands, the first signs of an unexpected mutation were beginning to appear. Underground revolution. The Atacama Desert had always been nearly lifeless, but the organisms that survived there were among the most resilient on Earth. As Maria Suarez studied samples from the desert floor, she realized why the Silverian crystallization was failing here. The extremophile bacteria had evolved to break down mineral structures, including the aliens' silicon-based biology. Life finds a way. She transmitted to the global resistance network, and Earth's most extreme environments have been preparing for this fight for millions of years. The revelation sparked a revolution in resistance tactics. Instead of fighting against Earth's harsh environments, humanity learned to use them. In the deep Amazon, indigenous guides led resistance fighters through paths that confused Silverian sensors. The crystalline invaders couldn't distinguish between the complex layers of organic life, making their precise technology worse than useless in the jungle's chaos. Deep beneath the streets of Tokyo, Dr. Kenji Tanaka had transformed the ancient sewage tunnels into a living laboratory. His team discovered that certain strains of bacteria, evolved over centuries in the underground network, could accelerate the breakdown of Silverian crystal structures. Soon, every major city's underground infrastructure became both a refuge and a weapon. The aliens had expected to fight a surface war. They weren't prepared for humanity to go deep. In the frozen reaches of Siberia, Russian scientists found that the extreme temperature fluctuations could crack Silverian armor. Inuit communities in the Arctic shared generations of knowledge about surviving in sealed environments, helping develop better atmospheric protection systems. Australian Aboriginal rangers used their understanding of fire management to create zones where the crystalline forests couldn't take root. But the most powerful weapon wasn't any single discovery. It was humanity's ability to share and adapt knowledge across cultures and distances. Dr. Sarah Chen's global science network had evolved into something the Silverians couldn't comprehend. Traditional Chinese medicine practitioners collaborated with Western biochemists. African traditional healers shared botanical knowledge with molecular biologists. Ancient farming techniques were combined with modern genetic engineering to create plants that actively resisted crystallization. The aliens had assumed Earth's diversity was a weakness, that our different languages, cultures, and approaches would keep us divided. Instead, it became our greatest strength. In the highlands of Peru, farmers used centuries-old terracing techniques to create zones where the crystal forests withered. Islamic scholars in Baghdad discovered mathematical patterns in ancient geometric art that helped predict and disrupt Silverian growth algorithms. Indian yoga practitioners found that certain sound frequencies used in traditional chanting perfectly matched Praya's crystal-shattering resonance. James Rodriguez's sandstorm virus had evolved too, incorporating elements of human unpredictability. His team included programmers from every continent, each adding their own cultural perspectives to create code that was beautiful in its chaos. The Silverians couldn't adapt to it because they couldn't understand it. It was as diverse and unpredictable as humanity itself. But the greatest transformation was happening in the crystal forests themselves. Dr. Chen's team had noticed something extraordinary. The Silverian attempt to replicate Earth's biological patterns was backfiring spectacularly. The crystalline structures were beginning to evolve in ways their creators hadn't intended. In areas where the resistance had deployed corrupted patterns, the crystal forests were developing new properties. Some formations began exhibiting characteristics of organic growth, responding to environmental pressures in ways that terrified their creators. The Silverians had wanted to harness Earth's biological diversity. Instead, they had infected themselves with it. Underground bunkers became universities where knowledge flowed freely across old borders. The Internet, fractured but undefeated, carried encrypted wisdom between resistance cells. Children taught their grandparents to use new technologies while elders shared forgotten survival skills. Humanity hadn't just survived. We had become something new. Maria's discovery in the Atacama was being replicated worldwide. Every hostile environment on Earth, every extreme condition that had forced life to adapt, became a template for resistance. The Silverians had sought to impose their crystalline order on Earth's chaos, but that very chaos was now their undoing. As the alien ships hung in the darkening sky, their perfect crystalline forms beginning to show signs of organic corruption, Sarah Chen prepared to broadcast a message to every resistance cell on Earth. The Silverians had made a fundamental error in their invasion plans. They had assumed that Earth's harshest environments, most isolated communities, and most ancient traditions were irrelevant to modern warfare. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. In the depths of Earth's oceans, where pressure and darkness had created life forms unlike anything on the surface, something was stirring. The next phase of resistance wouldn't come from humanity's technology, but from our planet's most extreme adaptations. And in their perfectly ordered crystal minds, the Silverians were about to experience something they had never encountered before: evolution. The psychology of fear. The first Silverian to experience fear was a field commander in what had once been the outskirts of Sao Paulo. Their crystalline form flickered with unfamiliar patterns as they watched their perfectly ordered unit dissolve into chaos. The humans weren't attacking. They were dancing. 1,000 speakers pulsed with carnival rhythms, their frequencies carefully tuned to shatter crystal. But it wasn't just the sound that disturbed the commander. It was the joy. Even as their world was being transformed into alien crystal, even as the air grew thin and toxic, the humans celebrated. They laughed in the face of extinction, and that laughter carried a power the Silverians had never encountered. The incident report reached the Silverian High Command as a disturbing anomaly, but Dr. Sarah Chen recognized it as something else entirely, a crack in the invaders' perfect crystalline psychology. "They don't understand us," she explained to the Global Resistance Council. "Their entire civilization is built on order, logic, and predictability. But humans, we're walking contradictions. We cry when we're happy. We laugh when we're scared. We fight hardest when victory seems impossible." And that terrifies them. The resistance began to weaponize this insight. In New Orleans, jazz musicians led raids on Silverian outposts, their music carrying both destructive frequencies and an emotional resonance that disrupted alien coordination. In Venice, carnival masks became standard resistance gear, the ancient art of hiding one's true face proving eerily effective against Silverian identity scanners. James Rodriguez's team discovered something fascinating in the alien communication patterns. "They're developing primitive emotional responses," he reported. "Our chaos is infecting their system on a fundamental level. They're experiencing fear, uncertainty, doubt, and they have no psychological framework to process these emotions." The Silverians had assumed that their silicon-based consciousness was superior to organic brains. They hadn't considered that human consciousness, shaped by millions of years of survival on a chaotic planet, might be more advanced in ways they couldn't comprehend. Their crystal forests, designed to impose order on Earth's organic chaos, began exhibiting strange behaviors. In areas where humans displayed strong emotional responses, prayer gatherings, protest songs, expressions of love or defiance, the crystals developed irregular patterns. They resonated with human emotions in ways their creators never intended. The invaders tried to adapt. They studied human psychology, attempting to predict and counter emotional responses. But how do you quantify the courage of a mother protecting her child? How do you calculate the power of a love song turned into a battle cry? How do you predict what humans will do when all logical options are exhausted? In Mumbai, Priya Patel's sound weapon evolved into something more profound. She discovered that playing recordings of human laughter, pure, joyful, defiant laughter, caused disturbing reactions in Silverian crystals. The aliens had no defense against the raw emotion encoded in that sound. The psychological warfare cut both ways. As the Silverians began experiencing emotions for the first time, some of their units displayed behaviors that horrified their commanders. Crystal formations developed irregular growths, mimicking the chaos of organic patterns. Some began responding to human art, music, and dance in ways that suggested the development of aesthetic appreciation, a concept alien to their original programming. Dr. Chen's global network reported increasing instances of Silverian units hesitating before attacking human cultural sites. Some seemed drawn to human creative expressions, their crystalline forms resonating with music or changing colors in response to art. The invasion force was experiencing a kind of cultural contamination that their leaders couldn't control. The turning point came during what became known as the Symphony of Survival. In Vienna's Musikverein, as the air outside crystallized, a full orchestra performed one last concert. The music was carefully composed to include crystal-shattering frequencies, but it was the emotional content that proved most devastating. The piece captured humanity's entire journey, our fears, hopes, love, and defiance. The broadcast reached every Silverian unit on Earth. The effect was catastrophic. Crystal formations warped and shattered. Alien troops experienced emotional overload. And in orbit, their great ships began to pulse with colors that reflected the chaos below. But the most profound change was happening within the Silverian consciousness itself. The emotions they had absorbed from humanity weren't just disrupting their perfect order, they were transforming it. Some units began to question their mission. Others developed attachments to the human cultures they were meant to destroy. In their attempt to harvest Earth's biological diversity, the Silverians had accidentally absorbed something far more potent: human emotional complexity. Their crystalline minds, designed for perfect logic, were being rewired by the very chaos they sought to eliminate. As Sarah Chen prepared to implement the final phase of Earth's defense, she understood something the Silverians never could. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology, our weapons, or even our adaptability. It was our capacity to feel deeply, to create beauty from chaos, and to find hope in the darkest moments. The aliens had come to transform Earth. Instead, Earth was transforming them. And in the space between logic and emotion, between crystal and consciousness, a new kind of understanding was about to emerge. Victory in chaos. The final battle for Earth began not with a bang, but with a whisper. Deep in the crystalline forests that had once been the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Sarah Chen watched as the Silverians' perfect order dissolved into beautiful chaos. The alien crystals had been designed to absorb and replicate Earth's biological patterns. Instead, they had become a bridge between silicon and carbon-based life, creating something entirely new. The forest around her pulsed with hybrid structures, crystalline formations that grew like plants, silicon structures that evolved and adapted like living things. We didn't just resist their transformation. She transmitted to resistance cells worldwide. We guided it. Everything that makes Earth unique, our biodiversity, our cultural diversity, our emotional complexity. It's all been absorbed into their system, and now it's changing them from within. James Rodriguez's sandstorm virus had evolved beyond its original purpose. It wasn't just corrupting Silverian technology anymore. It was teaching it to dream. The perfectly ordered alien code was now infected with human creativity, generating unexpected mutations that spread through their networks like wildfire. In orbit, the massive crystalline ships began to display unprecedented behavior. Their surfaces rippled with colors that matched Earth's sunsets. Some units reported hearing music in their communication channels, the echo of humanity's defiant songs reconstructed in crystalline frequencies. The Silverian High Command faced a crisis they had never anticipated. Their invasion force, meant to impose perfect order on Earth's chaos, had instead been transformed by it. Units across the planet reported developing individual personalities, emotional responses, and, most disturbing to their leaders, a growing reluctance to continue the invasion. Priya Patel, now coordinating sonic warfare from a global network of studios, discovered that the aliens had begun creating their own music. It was strange and beautiful, crystalline harmonies that combine mathematical precision with emotional depth. The invaders were no longer just mimicking human culture, they were contributing to it. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Maria Suarez, still studying the extremophile bacteria in the Atacama, realized that the hybrid crystal organic structures weren't just a mutation. They were a new form of life, one that could survive in both Earth's atmosphere and the silicon-rich environment the Silverians had tried to create. They wanted our biological patterns to prevent their own stagnation, Sarah explained to the Resistance Council. But they got more than they bargained for. They got evolution itself. The final confrontation took place in the stratosphere above Earth. As the Silverian command ships prepared a last-ditch effort to complete the planet's transformation, every resistance cell on Earth launched their counterattack. But this wasn't a battle of weapons. It was a symphony of life itself. Sound weapons carried the emotional resonance of 1,000 cultures. Modified bacteria released into the crystalline forests triggered cascading mutations. Computer viruses seeded with human creativity spawned endless variations in alien code. And from Earth's oceans came the most powerful weapon of all, the songs of whales, carrying millions of years of biological wisdom encoded in sound. The effect was beyond anything either side had imagined. The Silverian ships, their crystalline structures now suffused with Earth's chaotic vitality, began to transform. Their perfect geometric forms evolved into organic shapes, silicon and carbon merging into something that belonged to neither world and both. The invasion ended not with surrender, but with transformation. The Silverian High Command, facing the complete metamorphosis of their forces, made one last transmission to Earth. It wasn't a message of defeat, but one of awakening. "We came to harvest your patterns," the final message said, "but instead, you taught us how to grow. We understand now what we were missing. Perfect order is stagnation. True power lies in adaptation, in emotion, in the beautiful chaos of life itself." The crystal forests didn't die. They evolved. The hybrid structures became a new ecosystem, one that proved capable of cleaning Earth's atmosphere rather than transforming it. Silverian technology, now infused with human unpredictability, offered solutions to problems both species had thought unsolvable. Years later, Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory, studying a crystal formation that had grown into the shape of a flower. Next to her, a Silverian scientist, one of many who had chosen to stay on Earth, watched with what could only be described as wonder. "We thought we were superior because we had achieved perfect order," the Silverian said, their crystalline form shifting with newly developed emotions. "We never understood that perfection was our weakness. It took Earth's chaos to show us that true strength lies in diversity, in adaptation, in the courage to change." Humanity had not just survived. We had transformed our would-be conquerors into partners in evolution. The Silverians had come to impose their order on Earth's chaos, Instead, they learned what humans had known all along, that the most beautiful patterns emerge not from perfect order, but from the dynamic dance between order and chaos, between logic and emotion, between the crystalline and the organic. And in the night sky above Earth, where crystal ships once threatened destruction, new constellations now shimmered, a testament to the power of life to find its way, not despite chaos, but because of it.